bridge in 2015, and I'm a petty officer in the Navy.
All
Live
right.
over here in Chicago. Got my wife, my two kids. Life is good. When I was at the bridge, I don't know if you remember this, I apprenticed with a guy named Jose who made guitars out
Yeah,
in
of course.
Santo Domingo, and then I was going over there. Still very close with him and his entire family. Talk to them on a like a weekly basis. Even now, almost 10 years later. I remember we went to Sipekwe, and we went and sold a bunch of stuff and at the Feria Verde in Chepe, and I do remember very fondly that whole experience of being in that area, being exposed to that culture, and just being able to make an impact in people's lives in a way that some of the people that stayed with us for that second week, I know now live in the States and have great careers. And it's really cool to kind of see how those experiences that we help essentially raise money to send them on have completely changed their lives. And that's a really cool thing to kind of see. So,
Yeah, totally. And at the time, you had that internship at the people that made T-shirts, and
oh yeah, I forgot
so
about
we
that. Oh
made
my God.
T-shirts for
I
the
forgot
whole
about
thing.
that.
Yeah,
I completely forgot that I worked there. Oh my God.
yeah.
Yeah. The fact that I now speak fluent Spanish is beyond useful. I cannot overstress how useful that has been. That when you speak multiple languages, it is a game changer in a very significant way. That's opened a lot of doors for me
Hmm.
in my life, just being able to speak Spanish, and having that exposure to other cultures and other ways of living. It can be an adjustment to being part of that culture, to even just dietary changes. And if you can learn to be comfortable in your discomfort, that is an incredibly valuable tool that will serve you in so many things in life. The fact that you're, an American that's taken from America and brought to Costa Rica, and you're living with a whole bunch of other Americans, and you're surrounded by people who aren't American, um, I think it builds a certain level of camaraderie and trust with the people who you're in that program with. Because to a certain extent, as much as you want to ingratiate yourself with the culture around you and all that, there's always going to be a certain degree of like, this is unfamiliar to me, and for everyone else, it's not.
Hmm.
And because of that, you gravitate towards certain people who, um, you really do make friendships that you might not otherwise make.
Hmm.
And you're exposed to people that you might not otherwise be exposed to. Particularly when it comes to, again, that being able to resolve conflicts in a peaceable way. I mean, especially with the Navy, you might be on a boat with someone. There's not a whole, you can't go away. They're right there in your face all the time. You can't just leave, walk into the ocean. So you may not like that person. You may not be friendly with that person, but you have to coexist with that person, and you have to coexist with them in a stressful environment where stakes can be potentially the highest that you can imagine, which is life or death. You're able to later in your life kind of draw strength from those moments and be like, hey, this sucks, but like that sucked too, and I made it through that.
Hmm.
Or you'll meet people who may have a perspective that there's still times today where I'll think back on something that was said to me by someone, almost 10 years ago when I was at the bridge, and it'll suddenly click with me in a way that maybe it didn't at that time, or maybe it did, but you learn a lot of lessons that you can apply later in your life. Those challenging moments for me there, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. Those are the moments where I think I grew the most. And I don't think that you can achieve that through just like staying at home and doing whatever.
Hmm.
Because why are you going to grow and adapt and learn if you're comfortable? You don't have that impetus or that incentive to do so. But when I first got to the bridge, I didn't know any Spanish.
Hmm.
I still had to figure out how to talk to people. Um, and you learn to push yourself in ways that maybe you wouldn't if, everyone was speaking English and everything was kind of the same as you were used to back home. When you're in an environment where it's so different from what you're used to, it becomes that much more necessary to do that. Because if you're already kind of have bad habits and you already have ways that you're existing that aren't serving you in the ways that they need to, and then you get to an environment where everything is new and everything is different and everything is not what you're used to, then you kind of have to confront those parts of yourself in order to be able to adapt, because you can't get better at something by not doing it. When you're already in an environment where you're constantly being, put into that mindset of how can I readjust my thinking and reevaluate my actions in order to better acclimate myself to the environment around me, it makes it a little bit easier to make that kind of deeper leap into why am I struggling with these things? What about me is preventing me from excelling in this environment? And what do I need to do in order to address those concerns, right? No one I have ever seen has regretted doing too much in their life.
Yeah.
No one's ever said, oh, I wish I didn't go on that one trip to Paris, or I wish I didn't learn how to play the violin. Going to the bridge in a lot of ways is kind of a crazy thing to do. Like, let me pick up my entire life, go to another country where I don't speak the language, where I don't understand the culture, and let me just chill there for almost a year. Like, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But in doing that, you force yourself out of that kind of rigid mindset of here's how my life has to go. And you kind of have to learn how to become the captain of your own ship and find your own path. And the bridge helps you do that, but it doesn't do it for you. And being able to live your life fearlessly is, I think, to me, one of the things that's made me live my life happily.
Mm.
And fearlessly, not meaning recklessly, but being willing to say, hey, this is a scary thing, but I'm going to take the plunge and I'm going to give it my all. And the only way that you can get better at those things is just by doing them. It's that fear inoculation or stress inoculation. If you don't do it over and over and over again, then if you've never experienced that feeling, you don't know how to exist with it. And you're going to wind up kind of sitting in the same sad, boring office job that you don't really like very much and working with the same people. And I can't imagine myself in an office job. I would be beyond miserable.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
if I took like my brother, he's in an office job, he's happy. Like both my parents have office jobs. They're happy.
yeah.
I would
To
hate
each
that.
their own.
That's not me.
Yeah.
And so for me, like being able to take that step kind of outside of what might be normal for the environment I grew up in, has been a really valuable skill. And that's something that I do think you learn in the bridge. People look for internship opportunities and you find ways to make them work that when like a lot of the internships people there have, it's like, where do you even come up with this? Like, what is this? Like what the bridge does do really well is it like I kind of touched on this earlier, it fosters an environment where there's camaraderie, there's connection with the people around you. And it's not a kind of obtuse, the word community comes to mind. And it's not this kind of disjointed artificial community. You're living with the same people. You're spending a lot of time with the same people and you all become invested in each other. You're able to hold each other accountable, hold yourselves accountable, teach and learn from each other. A lot of places do a really good job teaching those tools. But if you don't actually use something in practice, like I have a martial arts background, so I'll use that as an example. You can have a black belt in karate, but if you've never sparred anyone, you don't know if it works or not because you
It's
don't
all
know
theory.
what to look for. It's all theory. You could read 1,000 books on swimming, but if you never get in the pool, do you really know how to swim? No. So the knowledge is great, but the actual practice and the action is what matters more.
Mm.
And I think what the bridge does really well is it takes people who have tried to, in many cases, unsuccessfully, to perform whatever action that is. So they have at least some practical experiences in some certain situations, but the things that they were doing weren't working for them. So it allows them to kind of reinvent themselves in a way to where, okay, you tried this, you didn't have the tools. What tools were you missing? Where do we find them? How do we get them to you? So you can go back and attack that same problem with a higher degree of efficiency and a higher degree of effectiveness because you've been taught the skills and you also have the knowledge that maybe you lacked before. And I'm not just talking about, mechanical or theoretical or physical knowledge, like, oh, here's how I cook a meal, that you do learn plenty of that there. I also mean the kind of more behavioral health side of things where it's like, okay, how do I make sure that I can get along with this group of people, right? How do I keep my mood or my emotions in check? How do I allow myself to be frustrated or be uncomfortable or be upset or be sad or be depressed or be whatever it is and still get to work when I need to get to work, and through internships and through the groups that they have there and through these life skills classes. And you kind of get to narrow things down to like, okay, I definitely don't want to do that. Maybe this is an option. Let's try it out. Okay, it didn't work. Great. We'll move on to the next thing. And you're kind of learning to pave your own way to what that end goal looks like for you. I think for me, one of the things that the bridge really taught me that was most beneficial was just to be okay being who I am, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And be okay taking a path that maybe a lot of other people wouldn't take. And being okay to just be like, hey, this is me, this is who I am, and that's good enough, and that's awesome. And you know, what do I need to do to be the truest version of myself? If I screw something up, treat it as an opportunity to learn, right? What did I do wrong this time, and what can I do differently next time to maybe get a different outcome? And if you treat quote unquote failure as an opportunity to learn from it, like you're never gonna, first of all, you'll never fail the same way twice. And second of all, before you know it, like you're gonna be the expert on whatever it is that you're doing.